Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, an entitled neighbor Karen called the cops on me for cleaning my home on a Sunday. And yes, that's clearly a crime. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. You know, when someone swears they are the most confident person in the room and talk about how not insecure they are. Or the type of person who swears they are not jealous of other people, but you can just hear their insecurities, jealousy projecting onto others when they speak. I'm assuming most of us have met or dealt with these kinds of people at least once in my life. And boy oh boy, does my jealous neighbor sure take the cake on this one. Now, I'm not a cocky person, but I am confident and proud of myself and where I have landed in life. I did come from a pretty poor upbringing and we have lived in a not so safe neighborhood. My parents did the absolute best with what they could, but it was hard at times and I was not naive to their struggles. So, when I was old enough to work, I started applying to jobs right away. Flash forward to my mid-20s and I was able to buy a house with my boyfriend. Yes, buy. You couldn't believe how happy I was to actually own my living space. Obviously, we had to make payments and we had a mortgage, but I was no longer just throwing money away towards rent for a property that I didn't even own. I thought that no one could ruin this feeling for me. This was until I met my lovely neighbor. We will call her Karen. Because of our work schedules, the only shared day off my boyfriend and I had was Sunday. Sundays were meant for cleaning up the house and relaxing, nothing too fancy, and you know, I did not think it would cause so many problems for our lovely neighbor Karen. When my boyfriend and I cleaned the house, we made it fun. Most Sundays we would wake up around 8 AM to clean the house and then go out to lunch or shopping afterwards. And by the way guys, waking up on a Sunday at 8 AM to clean the house does not sound like that much fun, but I guess to each their own. When we cleaned, we usually put on some music to entertain us, plus who does not love a good tune? Well, it seems like Karen does not. The first time she called the police on us, yes, the first time, this happened multiple times, was because we were cleaning our house on a Sunday and we were making too much noise. It's funny though, because the only noise you could really hear coming from our house was our music. And even then, you could not even hear it unless you were right up against our yard or property line, so I know she had to be snooping around. Anyway, she called the police on us without even asking us to turn it down or anything like that, which was pretty ridiculous if you ask me. When the police officers came to our door, we were so confused. We had no idea why they were there, and then they told us they received a noise complaint. First of all, am I the only one who thinks a noise complaint is a ridiculous reason to call the police? A noise complaint is not an emergency. We find out from the police officer that it was indeed our lovely neighbor Karen. And don't worry, you'll be thrilled to know that the police officers were just as confused as we were. We still had the music playing at the same volume as we did before, so the police officers could hear that we were not blasting music at a loud or disruptive volume. When they told Karen this, she freaked out and started saying how it is a shame how disrespectful the police officers have come and how we, my boyfriend and I, should be ashamed for bringing our disruptive activities into a quiet neighborhood. What? Disruptive activities? Do you mean vacuuming while playing music? I was truly at a loss. Regardless though, I was going to keep my house clean, and as a matter of fact, my boyfriend and I had decided to rent a small dumpster in order to junk some stuff both of us had accumulated during our move. It was nothing big, just some old furniture pieces and some personal belongings that we were not using any longer. It was a pretty small dumpster, but it was perfect for what we needed. Our neighbor did not like this either. She once again called the police officers, not only because we were making too much noise supposedly by throwing stuff in the dumpster, but she also claimed we were selling drugs out of the dumpster. I cannot make this up, people. However, this is also where the story gets fun, for my boyfriend and I at least, since the police are out at our house inspecting our dumpster. My boyfriend decides to tell the police officers that there is a strange smell coming from our neighbor's house and she was just trying to use our dumpster as a way to cover it up / distract people. This was not entirely untrue, there was in fact a strange smell coming from her house. And she did have a pile of junk in the backyard, so we figured it was just that. What ended up happening though was shocking to all of us. The police decide to check it out since they are already out here, and they could hardly get into her house because it turns out that Karen is an extreme hoarder. Like, to the point where her bedroom had stuff packed all the way up to the ceiling. It honestly was a shock. Of course, the police ended up having to report this to the city, and she had a certain amount of time to clean it up before she would get evicted, as she was just a renter, not an owner. Even though we had bad blood, we tried to be nice and help her out. I don't know a lot about hoarding, but I knew it could be considered a mental illness. However, she refused help. As a matter of fact, she refused any help. We learned that her sister had tried to get her to clean up several times, and each time it was a massive fail, and ending up with them not speaking to each other for weeks and even months at a time. Karen did end up getting evicted from the house, which does suck, but I definitely learned that you cannot help people that don't want to be helped, but you also cannot help Karens. And yeah guys, on the one hand, I am really happy for OP that he does not have to deal with this awful neighbor anymore, but still it is always sad to see people with mental health issues getting evicted from their homes. I hope Karen is now in a better place. The next one is titled, "New head waiter slapped me in front of customers. He did not realize I am the CEO of the restaurant chain." One thing that we don't mess around with here in France is food. So when I opened up a restaurant, my goal was to be able to give good food and good service at a decent price. I guess that plan worked, and I was actually able to open up about 3 locations and be pretty successful. I mainly work at the busiest location, but I try to make sure at least once a week to head over to the other 2 to check things out. This story is about something that happened at a location that I'm not usually at. My head waiter had left the position, and I needed to find a new one right away. For this job, I wanted someone with a lot of experience because I was not going to be at that location a lot to oversee things. I looked through a bunch of resumes and finally ended up picking the person with the most experience, and he was a head waiter before at a fancy 5-star restaurant. I did not question at the time why he would be taking a step down to a less fancy place, but I know sometimes things happen and I don't like to judge. I had a call in to check his references, but in the meantime I hired him and let him start taking charge of that location. I did not know anything was wrong until a couple of days later, when I started getting complaints from some of the employees that worked there for a long time. I let my staff speak their mind to me, and honestly, it's a great approach because things get fixed faster and sometimes great ideas can come from the guy washing dishes. They told me that they thought something was wrong with the head waiter because he seemed to act like a total snob and talk bad about people that didn't have a lot of money. Being self-made, this got me a little angry, but I was not going to fire someone over that. Someone also said that they smelled alcohol on his breath, and I asked my bartender to keep an eye out for him picking up drinks that nobody ordered. A couple more days passed and I got reports from some of the female employees that he was coming onto them multiple times and trying to use the fact that he was the head waiter and in charge over their heads. At that point I was done, because no matter if the customers were complaining, the well-being of my staff was worth more than any profit. The next day a charity event was taking place at the restaurant, and I decided I was going to join them there and watch this head waiter for myself so I could have something concrete to fire him over. None of the staff was to tell him who I was, and since he only heard me over the phone, I just looked like another person dressed for the charity event. We sat down without problem, and while everyone else mingled, I was watching the head waiter out of the corner of my eye. The first thing I saw was him putting in a drink order for the table, and when it came out he took a glass of wine for himself and drank it where he thought nobody could see him. I ordered my steak, and when it came out I noticed that it was basically raw. No chef is perfect, and the ones I hire are no exceptions, so I call over the head waiter and tell him that I needed to be cooked medium rare like I ordered. It came back and the plate was hot and the steam was coming out of it. I knew right away the signs of something just being stuck into the microwave, and it was not something my chefs did. I cut into the middle and it was still raw because it was not actually cooked, just heated with the appearance of being cooked. I was done watching. Me? You just stuck this in the microwave. Head waiter: "Excuse me? How dare you accuse me of something like this?" "We only have the finest cooks here and would not cater to poor people that use microwaves." Me, "Look, you can say anything you want, but when a plate comes out of a kitchen steaming like this, it means that it was stuck in the microwave, especially if the inside is still raw." Head waiter, "Do you work for the microwave company or something? Talking about it like you invented the thing. I know that a certain class of people are not used to eating fine food like this, but I should report you for slander at these claims." Me, "You need to stop now. I can smell the alcohol on your breath, and if you say one more thing, it's just going to be worse for you." Then he picks up my glass of water and proceeds to spill it all over me and slap me across the face. The whole room is dead quiet, looking to see what I'm going to do. He is smirking like nothing can happen, because he is in charge right now. Me, "Not only are you fired from my restaurant, but I'm going to make sure the police will arrest you for assault." Head waiter, "You have no right to fire me, you're just a nobody." Me, "Actually I am, my name, and you can be sure as hell I'm going to make sure you are never hired at another restaurant in the entire country." My bartender was already calling the police, and before they arrived he was able to leave and try to get away. It did not matter though, because I had the video evidence and his personal information, so they would be able to take care of that. As for me, I had to take care of my restaurant, which started with an apology to everyone that was there and for my staff for the way they had been treated from this man. It turns out the chef was using the microwave because the guy told him I wanted it, and if he didn't, he was going to be fired. The rest of the event went fantastic, and once it was over, I was able to continue finding out more about this man. I finally got in touch with his previous job that said he was fired for getting drunk and attempting to get inappropriate with some of the female staff. I made sure to spread the word as far as I could about this man and why nobody should hire him. If I get any calls in the future for a reference, I have no issues telling them exactly what he did to me and why they should hire anybody else. As for his punishment, it was pretty satisfying. He got in trouble not only for the assault, but for stealing the alcohol he had been drinking on the job. He had to do community service in a poor neighborhood's food kitchen, where he would have to serve the people that he constantly belittled. I learned my lesson of no matter how good somebody looks on paper, make sure to check their references even if I need a position filled quickly. As for that job, I did it myself for a couple of weeks until I found a much better replacement. And obviously guys, the only thing I did not like about this story was the disrespect OP had in regards to the hardworking Chef Mike. Because guys, as you know, when the lights are on in the restaurant, Chef Mike is always there. He is a hardworking employee. And if you don't know, Chef Mike is the microwave. And the next one is titled Absolutely Crazy Neighbor. Background: this took place about 3 years ago when I, 19 female, was living in a one-bedroom apartment on campus. My building was not campus housing, but still really close to schools which averaged 22,000 students every year. It had a few apartments and it was designed like this. The first floor was the entrance and the apartment of entitled son number 1, ES1. The second floor was my apartment, above the entrance, and entitled son 2, ES2, above ES1. Both sons were about 40 years old and their mother, EM, who was about 60 years old, was living with ES2. I later had confirmation by the building management that she was not supposed to live there. So this building was old, not very well soundproofed. To add to that, our 2 apartments on the second floor were once one apartment that was separated within a thin partition between my kitchen and EM's bedroom. Beforehand, before that day, I had received notes in my mailbox or visits from EM saying that I was too loud. She told me that my washing machine was too loud, so I was careful not to do laundry before 9 AM or after 8 PM. She told me my door was disturbing her, so every time I closed it, I used my key to turn the lock instead of pulling and pushing it and making noise. One day I was in my kitchen talking with a friend at 1 AM when we heard a knock on the wall. We had obviously woken her up, so we moved the chat to my bedroom away from her to not disturb her. During the year I lived there, I only had people over once, for half an hour between 8 PM and 8:30 PM, and she was not even there for half of it. All I want to say is, I could have been a much worse neighbor to her. I was apologizing for everything and trying to accommodate her the best I could in a crappy building. The story: I was on my way to class when EM and ES2 were going up the stairs to their apartment. My back was turned to them as I was locking my door, when suddenly EM grabs my shoulder, turns me around and shoves me against my door, with the big metal handle right on my spine. EM yelling, "Hey, can we sleep in the morning here?" Me, yes? EM still yelling, "Stop treating me like I'm stupid. Stop screwing with me. I know you're doing it on purpose. Every morning when you walk in your kitchen, you stomp to wake me up." Me, "I'm sorry, no, I'm not doing it on purpose." EM, "I'm 60 years old. I'm exhausted when I come home from work because I do a manual job 60 hours a week, so I need to sleep in the morning." She was coming home at 3:30 p.m. on a Thursday, was not up at 7:30 a.m. when I was eating breakfast in my kitchen, but still managed to work 60 hours a week. Right. She kept yelling at me, saying that students are only here to annoy her, until her son screamed, "Next noise, you will see what we will do to you." I started crying and I left. The aftermath, I called my dad as soon as I got out of the building. I was speed walking as I knew they could see me from their window. My dad told me to go to the cops and file a complaint. On my way, I stopped by my school where there was an event, so friends of mine were in the hall and saw me in tears. One of them accompanied me to the police. I had to get a medical certificate in order to file the complaint, which explained that I was so afraid of her, I was eating on my bed instead of in my kitchen, and I recorded with my phone every time I was in the hallway to have proof if she ever decided to assault me again. That night, I decided to not sleep there, so I picked up some clothes and my laptop, and a male friend went with me in case I ran into her again. I later got calls from the owner of the building and the management apologizing and telling me that it was not the first time EM had caused problems. We also received a letter saying that cameras had been installed in the hallways. In the end, I did not follow up and went to court, but she never bothered me again, so I guess that's a win. And yeah guys, I guess that little warning was enough to deter EM from causing further problems. The next one is titled, "Steal my car, wreck it, and try to lie so I am held liable too? How about I tell the truth and you pay the whole bill?" The block of flats I used to live in was being converted into Airbnb rooms by the landlord. We, me and my wife, were the last residential tenants renting there out of the 14 flats. It was unstaffed, so 99% of the time the rooms were booked by in-call ladies of the night and dealers of illegal substances. For a solid week we had dealers in and out of the door, up and down the adjoining stairwell every 30 minutes, and one night we saw a black SUV pull up near the front of the property and try to bundle one of the women who was staying in the dealer room opposite ours. She managed to get away. We called the police as we were scared for her safety. They ended up getting a warrant as we told them of our suspicions, and when tallied up with the attempted bundling, the duty sergeant was happy to bust their door in, searched a lot of them, and made arrests. The other adjoining room/flat had a couple staying in it, got a bit drunk as you do, and we heard them arguing and it getting heated, and at one point some sort of physical violence occurred. Police came again, told the guy to leave and not to return. However, he did come back and shouted at her, threatening to stab her. A short while later we heard the most terrifying blood-curdling scream and called the police again. He went around the back of the property, got in a car and sped off moments before the police turned up. The final tale was literally on my day off, hearing a knock at the flat's bottom door, either every half hour or hourly. I saw dudes with their cash waiting to come up and get their end way with a lady of the night who stayed for a few nights in the adjoining flat. The drug raid won. John would then leave. Not even 5 minutes later, she was on to the next one and I heard everything. Walls were horrifically thin. I hated that place, but it was that or homelessness. We have now lived in our forever home, a nice bungalow in the countryside, for the last year, and the leave and quiet has been a godsend. And I guess guys, that is just one of the perks of living out in the countryside. If you live in a big city, especially in some kind of apartment in a huge apartment complex, you never really know what you're gonna get in terms of neighbors. Douche neighbor tried to get us in trouble with cops for making preparations for an eventual fence. This literally happened to me and my family almost a year ago. My family hired a couple who specialized in small projects to put up steel poles for an eventual fence that we've been planning to put up for a while. Our neighbor lost his mind as he thought we were on his property. We've had issues with him in the past over property line issues, despite us showing him the deed and proving him wrong many times. He screamed at the couple and then jumped the fence to our yard and went around to the front to scream at my mom to tell her to stop the couple, and we had no right to put up a fence. My mom reacted, told him to knock it off and reminded him that it is on our side. He left and then called the cops on us. The cops came a few minutes later, got both stories and told him to calm down and to call a lawyer as they cannot do anything and to not jump the fence again. The next day my dad talked to him. It didn't go smooth as my dad asked him why he screamed at my mom. He ignored the question and accused me of smoking MJ on his property when I was younger, and at the time of the story a few weeks ago I have asthma. My dad told him to calm down and to not let this happen again. He dropped it, or so we thought. A few weeks after, he keeps mean mugging us when we happen to see each other, my dad, mom, wife and me, and we somehow got big bags of trash on our yard and garden, so I had enough of his crap and did something which I admit is petty and stupid. And funny, as my dad said, but I had enough. When I knew he was coming, I went to the backyard, set up a table and chair, and I then brought out my shotgun and pistol to clean them. It has been a while, and for once it was a nice day in my city to be in one's yard. As soon as he went to his yard, he got a look at my guns as I was cleaning them. As soon as he met my eyes, he walked away fast. Trying not to look at me anymore, coincidentally, the trash stopped appearing in our yard and he has finally left us alone. And yeah guys, seems like if you take care of your firearms, that is a good way to deter an awful neighbor. Who would have thought?